Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Donnelly.
And I'm Dr. Hinson.
We're the good doctors of Abbey Research, coming to you with our recap and analysis of episode 12 of season 2 of The Handmaid's Tale, entitled Postpartum.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of socio-religious thoughts on this.
And surprising.
There was a whole lot of things happening in this episode.
Yes.
So Dr. Hinson, take it away with our recap. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so I watched this episode just last night, and as I was watching it, at this stage I don't even write down the biblical stuff because I'm like, not my sphere. It's fine. From my end, imprisonment's awful. We know this already. I've told you this already. This is Dr. Donnelly's ball today, so I'm going to take the recapping duties. So we open this episode with Serena as the mother to the baby that she has named Nicole. And she's taking care of the baby and fawning over it. June is in the Rachel and Leah Center by herself. God love her. Pumping the breast milk, and Aunt Lydia is there. And Aunt Lydia tells us, thankfully, that a few weeks have passed. But June is not producing milk as much anymore. Shocking that she needs to be near the baby to do that. Oh, medicine. And we learned that there are several households vying for June, and in a very Protestant fashion, sending baked goods, which made me laugh because I just went, oh, Protestants.
We love it. We love a baked good.
We love a baked good, and June has the audacity to say, I think I've earned a whole cake, which was hilarious. The commander is now in charge of media expansion, which presumably because of the shit show with the letter release, they've realized they have to be a bit more proactive. Our Nick is fine. We don't get to see how he escaped, but it was just a misunderstanding, and he's fine. Fred makes some promises to him for his future elevated status, and then makes him hang a picture because Fred's a dick. And it's a picture of the fake happy Waterford family that is all an illusion. And we see Serena talking to Eden about patience and service and sacrifice, and it's all worth the wait, and all of this. And then QB1, we learn, and this is actually Isaac, I think is his name, we learn by the end, shows up to the Rachel and Leah Center with Fred and Nicholas, and June is allowed to like pump in front of the baby to help with this process. And then Aunt Lydia manages to convince Commander Waterford that for the benefit of the baby, June needs to be in closer proximity. So he agrees to keep her in the attic. And June goes back because she knows it's what's best for the health of her baby. Serena, flips her lid because she's like, did you let her touch my child? Super. The animosity between Fred and Serena is like life-giving.
Yeah.
Where he just looks at her. They hate each other. He looks at her, walks out of the room, and goes, "Mother knows best." And I was like, oh, slam.
They hate each other, and it's it could not have happened to two better people.
I know. Then we flash to our dear Emily. Rory Gilmore is apparently bouncing around commanders' homes because
I'm shocked that nobody wants a really, really hateful
because she has no shits. She is dying of radiation poisoning, and homegirl is not playing this game.
Yeah, I'm shocked that nobody wants that kind of energy in their house.
I know, right? So Aunt Lydia's like, this is your last chance. Don't screw this up. The home of Commander Lawrence, who is the architect of Gilead's economy. And I was like, what is their economy? Slaves? I don't understand.
The colonies. That's their
colonies is there. Yes. Well done, Dr. Donnelly. Sometimes I'm a little slow. The Martha is missing an eye. So I wrote down, this is clearly a house of rebels.
Yeah.
And swearing.
And it's not a Gilead house. There's art everywhere. There's
George O'Keeffe on the wall. I was like, what?
Yeah.
As an art history major, I'm like writing down paintings names in the background, like, wow, they have quite a nice collection. He's not even dressed as a commander, really. He's dressed as like a professor.
Yeah. He's played by Josh Lyman.
He's played by Josh Lyman, our beloved Bradley Whitford, and we are both very nervous about what he is going to do.
And Bradley Whitford is like the king of the sardonic dialogue.
Yeah.
It's why he is so good in Get Out and Cabin in the Woods and all of those.
I worry he's more Get Out than West Wing. In this incarnation.
But we can't tell, and that's the genius of this casting. So.
That is the brilliance of Bradley Whitford.
I also hope that Bradley Whitford and Elizabeth Moss had a nice little reunion, maybe over chili.
I know, I'm sure they were just like, hey, West Wing reunion. I would love to see that picture on Twitter, guys, or Instagram if you're kind. So then we're back in the Waterford house, and June runs into Eden, our dear Eden.
Who looks like a castaway from Sound of Music. With the like weirdo felt lederhosen.
She is very German, Austro-Hungarian.
Yeah, I want to call her Liesel. Yeah,
I know, in her attire. And she asks her about love and shouldn't you love your husband. June presumes she's talking about June's relationship with Nick, and she tries to reassure her, I won't be here for forever. She doesn't know she's talking about her relationship with QB1. And June tells her, I think in this place you grab love wherever you can find it.
In a very human moment.
In a very human moment. We have all talked about the power of love on this show, and love being the answer and love being the victory. And sadly, that's not what happens, or it is what happens, depending on how you frame it, for Eden and Isaac. They wake up the next morning and she's gone. Nick comes into the house. Eden's not here. And then they discover that guardian Isaac isn't there either. June hilariously says maybe she went to the mall. I heard there was a sale at Old Navy. Which I love Old Navy.
And there's always a sale. So
there's always a sale, as the constant email reminders that I get. And then they have Nick and June have a delightful conversation about their baby, and a normal coupley moment that just melted all of my insides. And our baby is beautiful. I wish I could hold her. Oh, and one of our
I hope that's okay.
I know. Shout out to one of our YouTube followers who commented about how this must feel for Nick to be the father, because I think that's a great point, and I think hopefully see if you agree with me that they addressed it in this, that it's very difficult for him not to be in this fatherly role, and to be able to be excited about having a baby with the woman that he loves. And then we learn more about Gilead, which is the entire apparently contiguous United States.
Sure.
Because they joke about escaping to the West Coast, and June says that's still Gilead. So he counters with Hawaii, which we know is owned by America, and we know from last episode, so is Alaska. So that's apparently what we've got. Alaska and Hawaii. Cool. So helpful. And then Fred and June have this really weird, uncomfortable conversation where he's super, super creepy dude, where she asks her how it was to see her baby, like it was the best thing ever.
And then clearly expects some sort of sexual favors in return for seeing her child.
Yep. That was super, super awkward. She says we could play Scrabble sometime and tries not to vomit on his shoes. Was the end of that. The wife, we're back with Emily again, flashing back and forth. The wife shows up into her room, and we learn that Commander Lawrence was the architect of the colonies.
We're having a very Jane Eyre vibe going on right now, where they're trying to keep the crazy wife in the attic. Yes,
so very clearly a rebellious household that's non-conforming, that has some internal issues. And he says, my wife's not well, but she screams at him, "You're disgusting, I hate you, you know what you did." And then Commander Lawrence, Josh Lyman, pours Emily a beer, and they have a really, really painfully awkward conversation about the fact that she was a biochemistry teacher.
And a lesbian.
And has a child, and don't you miss your child? So we're not sure what he's doing.
Like Yeah, we don't know what's happening there.
We don't know if he's playing mind games or if he's genuinely trying to get to know her. It was really difficult to tell because Bradley Whitford is so great at that. And then the end of the episode is really the heartbreaking bit. They discover Eden and Isaac together. And we see Nick in one of the most painful scenes of this season, emotionally, trying to convince her to lie to save herself. He makes her promises. He says, we can have a family. Just tell them, that he coerced you or whatever. And she refuses. And then we are in a swimming pool and we see that it's a new form of execution for me, for capital punishment, Aaron. And they are asked over and over again, they are placed at the mercy of the state. They are asked over and over to renounce their sins. Neither one of them do. Eden starts to recite Proverbs.
1 Corinthians 13.
1 Corinthians 13. See, not my bag. But love is kind, which is what Nick read at the start of their wedding. But the phrase that Dr. Donnelly talks a lot about. And then they're pushed off the ledge and drowned in front of everyone.
Including her mother and sister. And Serena is sobbing.
And I don't have any time for her. I don't have any, this is your doing. You made this. You don't get to be sad about this.
I think every time Serena is reminded that the state that she created hates women is when she is forced back into her humanity.
I guess. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, every time she's reminded that she lost control and she has no control is when she embraces her humanity.
So June tries to comfort Nick and he is inconsolable. So we'll see where that goes for them in the final season finale. We might not have time for it with all the other stuff going on. But I wrote that June is always a mother. She's always trying to take care of people. And even Serena's been so horrible to her. She still goes in and asks her if she's okay.
Yep.
Because she is the preeminent mother of everyone on this show.
Mm-hmm.
And the episode ends with Serena allowing June to nurse the baby, Nicole Stroke-Hawley, and sharing a moment of kind of emotional bonding again. So the seesaw of Serena and June has come back down. And that is where we ended. So Dr. Donnelly, I'm going to shut up now and let you tell me what the HE double hockey sticks was going on in this episode.
Well, first of all, there's building stuff with Serena, but I'm going to skip and just focus on Eden. And then some of the stuff that Serena says at the end. So really, one of the things I noticed, I should say, about the pool is that there was a whole lot of other weights down there. So yep. I think this is how they execute infidelity, specifically.
Okay.
Because there was no talk of putting them on the wall. The wall is for traitors to the state. They don't see infidelity as a traitor to the state as much as they see it's a traitor to the control of the state. And that's a really specific difference. Okay. Someone's going to go on the wall when they're going to destroy Gilead.
When they're a threat to the security of the state.
Someone is going to get drowned when they prove that Gilead doesn't work.
Oh.
I think.
Because then they used to drown witches?
Drown and burn.
Drown and burn witches? So, yeah, I thought there was some sort of kind of pre-colonial reference being made there.
And actual true love is not something the state can ever control.
No.
And the state will always fail love. And
it's not something the state believes in either.
Mm-mm. They want them to confess because then Gilead works, not because they care about them as human beings.
No, they want them to renounce their sins and recognize that love is a sin in a utilitarian state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in order to understand Eden's mindset as to why she was never going to lie, and she was going to accept her fate, I would ask all of you to remember that a huge part of fundamentalist Christianity is martyrdom almost as a fetish. So like suffering is, and this is the same in a lot of evangelical Christianity in America right now. Suffering is seen as a reward and that you're doing things right. Okay. So you are told that you'll be mocked by, I mean, clearly she wasn't told this necessarily, but in a lot of evangelical American parlance, you're told that you'll be mocked by your friends. You're told that you'll be lonely. You're told that life will be very hard and that it is supposed to be very hard because you are earning your eternal reward.
Okay.
So if you've been convinced of that forever, that life is supposed to be hard, your earthly life is not the most important thing to you. So like Eden actually doesn't think she's sacrificing anything. It's not a huge deal to her that she's going to die because she's going to live forever. And this is not this tragedy to her.
Right.
At all. For her, the tragedy would be to deny that she loves Isaac. The tragedy would be to keep living this lie with Nick. The tragedy is not death because she will be rewarded in the next life for her faithfulness to love. So keep that in mind. The passage too, I'm pulling up a passage. So when she's in the locker room with Nick, the verse that she quotes is Isaiah chapter 43. And the context around it is pretty important. So it says, now this is what the Lord says, he who created you, O Jacob, and he who formed you, O Israel. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name, and you are mine. Right. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you go through the rivers, they will not overwhelm you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be scorched, and the flames will not set you ablaze. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior, and I have given Egypt your ransom. So, God's already paid for her slave wages. She's already free. What does it matter to her? Doesn't at all. And then they keep quoting, according to their law of Exodus, which is, I mean, hilarious, because they violate the Exodonian law on the regular. But sure, cherry pick a verse in Exodus, go for it. So she gets up there and recites the most subversive verse that she can think of, which is 1 Corinthians 13. That girl is smart, and she knows exactly what she's doing.
100%. Yeah, I had a lot of respect for what she was doing because she was a person of convictions and clear intelligence.
Yeah, like they said earlier, Eden would never run away because she's pious. And that was what Serena said, my immediate thought was, oh, no, she will because she's pious.
Yeah, because she is, unlike any of you, she actually believes the words of the Bible.
And your government is so twisted around words that she can't stomach because there is nowhere in the Bible that justifies forced marriage. Nowhere.
Yeah.
So I totally would have been Eden when I was growing up. I mean, 100% thought that martyrdom was what I was meant for certainly for a couple of years, and that it would be a great honor. So not surprised that this is the choice that she made. Yeah. And then the last thing I want to talk about is when June and Serena are in the room when all this is over. The verse that Serena quotes is also from the book of Isaiah, a couple chapters later. And this is what she says. This is what this says is, for this is what the Lord says, even the captives of the mighty will be taken away, and the plunder of a tyrant will be retrieved. I will contend with those who contend with you, and I will save your children. I will make your,
What is she talking about? I was so lost. What is she talking about?
I think she's talking, right now, in that moment, that was one of those things where she was reciting it like a talisman. I don't think she knows what she was saying, but
okay.
That's one of those things you just have to believe. That is very clearly to me a foundational verse for what they think of as Gilead. So, because so after it talks about that I will make your oppressors eat their own flesh, delightful. And they will be drunk on their own blood as with sweet wine, which is a metaphor for in prophetic language, for a society destroying itself, which is what they thought America was doing by their choices.
Right, yeah.
So what Serena has taken a prophecy meant for a tribal nation of Israel in a long time ago BC, and has decided it was directly applicable, and is realizing that it no longer is, and is clinging to that because her whole faith system is falling apart around her. So she was saying it almost like a rosary.
Okay.
God, you promised me you would save my children. You promised me. Look at this verse. You promised me.
And I mean, I think probably what was so shocking was, and our theory is that Eden, right, was raised in, almost said the Sons of Anarchy, lol, the Sons of Jacob, from birth. Mm-hmm. That if the cult was around for long enough, certainly 15 years, that was the only world that she knew. And they elevated her status. So she comes from a really important family, or honored family, because they've been involved in this for so long, and followed all of these rules. And to have her then go against the state when she's the perfect example of what they thought they were raising.
Serena doesn't know what to do anymore.
Yeah, that's got to be a huge mindfuck.
Yeah, that's what that verse said to me. Okay. You made me all these promises, and I built this whole system based on your promises. And that girl chose death over living in the system I've created. Yep.
And she chose it with faith.
She chose it because of her faith.
Because of her faith.
And I can almost guarantee you Serena doesn't actually have any faith anymore.
Oh no. Oh Lord, no. I question whether she had it to begin with, but
no, I think she did. I don't think Fred ever did. Fred only ever saw it as utilitarian. I think Serena legitimately believed these things, and legitimately saw them as expressions of her relationship with God. And that has been destroyed. On that level, I do feel bad for her, because you're being proved that your faith doesn't work is an incredibly traumatic experience.
I'm sure that it is. And like rationally, I can understand all of her lashing out. And we can, like psychoanalyze where she's coming from. And
but I also want to like harm her.
But then I just really don't like her.
Yeah, that's fair.
On my emotional level, on my academic level, I totally understand what she's going through, and I have a bit of sympathy for her.
Yeah. But this is also just, we were raised differently and we have different stories.
Oh, 100%.
She makes more sense to me than she does to you. And and so it's just, there are times I see the looks on her faces and I was like, oh, I remember when that piece of my faith fell apart and I had to rebuild it. I remember when that thing that I defined my entire life by no longer made sense. And it feels like an internal divorce. It's awful. And if it's not something that you've gone through, it's hard to articulate. Like I still struggle to tell people who haven't done it.
And there's no way that I can understand what that feels like, because I was never raised in a faith system at all that then I challenged. So
0% justifies her behavior, though. Hear me say that, viewers. Like, I'm not excusing any of her behavior. I'm simply saying when your internal self crumbles, it's very traumatizing.
I mean, one of the things that we always talked about in studying the conflict in Northern Ireland, right, is understanding is not condoning. You can try and understand where people are coming from without condoning their actions. So
absolutely. And that's a lot of why her yo-yoing this season makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh, sure.
I don't really see it as like bad writing or a weakness in character. I actually see it as really strong writing, and says to me that somebody on that writing staff read about escaping a cult, because that's what she's doing.
She's crumbling, clearly, very clearly, under the pressure that they're facing. Yeah. And the challenges to the system that she thought she was building for the betterment of society and that she thought was going to be indestructible.
And it turns out tyranny is always destroyed by love.
That's right.
So on that note.
Yes, on that happy note.
Next week is the finale.
Woo!
And I've already emotionally set aside 3 or 4 days to process it, because I'm sure I'll need that.
Yes, we will be together when we watch it.
That's necessary.
Praise be. But that doesn't mean we're going to be able to talk about it, because I watched the preview.
So on that note, friends, I'm Dr. Donnelly.
And I'm Dr. Hinson.
And we're the good doctors of Abbey Research, wishing you a deep week of felt love. All the best.
Bye.